Ramsey Solutions, the employer, has fired a woman for having premarital sex because apparently we're in 1925. Welcome back to Wine and Chill, your home for all things legal shenanigans. I'm Stephanie, your friendly neighborhood lawyer. Well, not your lawyer, which brings me quickly to our disclaimer. By watching this video, you understand and acknowledge that this video is solely for entertainment purposes, and you agree that you've read the full disclaimer down below in the description box. Today, we're actually going to cross the two parts of the channel that I talk about, which is debt payoff. As you guys know, I've paid off $60,000 towards my student loans in the past year, and legal shenanigans. So this channel usually covers student loans and legal shenanigans, and in the rare instance, it's going to cover both today. So keeping with our theme of supporting Black-owned wines and Black-owned businesses, this is McBride Sisters. What are we having today? They're red blend. So this is actually 2017. So I was like, ooh, a little bougie for us. I think I spilled it a little bit. McBride Sisters, owned by two Black women sisters. It's pretty good, so you guys should check that out. I'm trying to try more reds. So today we are going to talk about Dave Ramsey, Chris Hogan, and Dave Ramsey Solutions, in a very interesting lawsuit. For those of you that aren't familiar, Dave Ramsey helped tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people get out of debt. He uses Christian principles to apply to debt payoff and people, living a debt-free lifestyle. Before we even get into the lawsuit, but how he runs his organization and why he's being sued, it would be untruthful on my end to not admit that, yes, I do follow Chris Hogan on YouTube. I found him to be very helpful. He was, which we're gonna get into that, an associate of Dave Ramsey. He worked for Ramsey Solutions as well as Dave Ramsey. I really like their debt-free screams. So anybody telling you that, oh, Dave Ramsey is an awful person, two things can be true at once. However, there are plenty of things Dave does that I find to be problematic. We're going to talk about the Chris Hogan situation because it ties into the lawsuit, which is interesting. So Chris Hogan, he posted a couple days ago a very cryptic 50-second message update, which he basically said like, hey, I did some things that weren't in line with Ramsey Solutions and I no longer am employed. It was very vague. It sounded like, maybe he opened a credit card. His unmentioned actions are actually his multiple affairs, which led to his divorce 2 years ago. So why are we now in Chris Hogan's personal business 2 years later? Because it's now no longer his personal business, and apparently it was never his personal business. And there are allegations that Dave Ramsey Solutions, knew all along what he was doing and decided to turn a blind eye. So again, why does this matter? Because it's being brought up in this lawsuit. So a quick background about this lawsuit before we get into the case. As usual, I'm going to put everything, I'll scooch over in a second. I'll put everything over here to the left of me so that way you guys can read along, and it will be linked in the description box so you can read along as well. So on February 5th, an amended complaint was filed against Lampo Group, aka Ramsey Solutions. Ramsey Solutions used to be called Lampo Group. The original complaint was filed in July 7th of 2020. So we are going to discuss the amended complaint. So here we have original complaint, amended complaint, 2 depositions. We have a lot of information to go over today. Some tweets, y'all. I was perusing the Twitter. Y'all know I don't get on that thing. So that was interesting. And an answer to the complaint. So lots of information has come out. Come out about what? The lawsuit basically surrounding this is one Miss Caitlin was fired from Ramsey Solutions for becoming pregnant while unmarried. According to Ramsey Solutions, that is specifically the reason they fired her. They fired her for committing a violation against one of their core values, which states they do not condone premarital sex. Yes. Ramsey Solutions, the employer, has fired a woman for having premarital sex because apparently we're in 1925. Now, what does this have to do with Chris? Apparently, Chris was having extramarital sex with coworkers, with other people, while he was employed at Ramsey Solutions, and instead of firing him, they actually allowed him to put out a book, supported him, let him do a whole press release, and yeah, so this is a discrimination case where Caitlin is basically claiming like, hey, I'm not the only one bumping and grinding over here, but I'm the only one getting fired. I told you to grab the wine, right? There are 7 counts here. I'm going to state them off and put them here, and then we're going to go through some of them. So count 1, violation of FMLA, that's the Family and Medical Leave Act, retaliation interference. Count 2, violation of THRA, sex and pregnancy, discrimination, retaliation. THRA is Tennessee specific. Count 3, violation of Tennessee Maternity Leave Act. Count 4, because remember, this woman is pregnant and she did ask for leave, upon which they were like, boo, fired. Ugh. Count 4, violation of TDA, disability discrimination retaliation. Count 5, violation of THRA and Title VII, religious discrimination retaliation. Count 6, violation of Title VII, sex, pregnancy discrimination retaliation. Count 7, violation of ADA, American with Disabilities Act, disability discrimination. For those of you asking what's a disability, when you are pregnant, under the law, when you're pregnant, that is labeled as a disability because you cannot do the fully able-bodied things you had previously done. Let's first start with this alleged Dave Ramsey righteous living policy, since it's gonna get brought up so many times. It's not really a policy as the Ramsey Solutions team, your legal team, is arguing. It's more of a mission statement, core values. Policy technically is written out like if you do A, B will happen to you. So for that is a clear distinction. I will give that to them. So Ramsey Solutions mission statement. Ramsey Solutions provides biblically based, common sense education and empowerment that gives hope to everyone in every walk of life. So Team Crusade, Colossians 3:23, we won't get through all of it. We will scroll down to righteous living. We believe that character matters all the time. This sounds great. Yes, your character matters all the time. What you do in private will come to public. Maybe they should apply that to themselves. But anyways, opening of the case, page 1. After working for the Lampo Group, aka Ramsey Solutions, for over 4 years, Caitlin notified Ramsey Solutions she was pregnant. However, instead of it being a joyful time, she was terminated from her job because of her pregnancy. This is a fact. There are statements from Dave Ramsey and their attorneys be like, yeah, we fired her because she got pregnant for having sex outside of marriage. Which, me saying this out loud in 2021, I'm just like, what is happening? Caitlin requested FMLA paperwork for the birth of her child and requested ADA paperwork since her pregnancy is considered a geriatric pregnancy. Oh, geriatric is so rude. That means over 35. Subsequently, Caitlin received a phone call informing her that she would have a meeting with a board member the next week. During this meeting, Caitlin met with 2 board members who informed her Ramsey Solutions was still deciding the best way to proceed. Caitlin finally had a meeting with the head of human resources and the board members and was informed she was being terminated due to her pregnancy for violation of company conduct because she is not married to a partner, the baby's father. Now, some of you will say, well, like, that's good. They're enforcing Christian ethics on people. I mean, if you're going to choose to be pro-life, don't the baby need to eat something? So doesn't she need a job? But, that's none of my business, and that's a tangent that we're not going to get into. Let's scoot down to paragraph 9. These are basically the facts over the years. So she's worked at Ramsey Solutions for 4 years. She has never been written up. Apparently an excellent employee. They've all admitted this. So let's look at her email. So her email is right here. So look, she was like, listen, I needed you to know that, which this is addressed a little odd, but I needed you to let you know that I'm 12 weeks pregnant. I understand that being unmarried and expecting is frowned upon here, but the reality situation is this is what I'm walking through right now. This is obviously uncharted territory for me, so I'm not sure my next steps are regarding sharing the news with my leader. Getting FMLA and ADA paperwork in case it's needed in the future. I'm out of office this and this day, but we'll be checking periodically. Don't do that. If you're out of office, don't say you're checking your email. Take your vacations. Let's put that in there. So as we look through the code of conduct, paragraph 16, Ramsey Solutions company conduct provides provision in their handbook states the image of Ramsey Solution is held out to be Christian. Held out to be. Should a team member engage in behavior not consistent with traditional Judeo-Christian values or teachings, it would damage the image and the value of our goodwill in our brand. If this should occur, the team member would be subject to review, probation, or termination. This is written in their employee handbook. Now, part of Christianity is forgiveness and learn, like, I'm not gonna, Next. The core values incorporated into Ramsey's mission statement incorporates a righteous living policy or value which prohibits premarital sex. Caitlin's violation of company conduct and righteous living policy is that she and the father of her child are in a committed long-term relationship but not legally married, nor do they desire to be married at this time. The joke of the day is which is why I'm not saying her last name listed here, which is the last name in that email are 2 different last names. So I'm wondering if she actually got married afterwards, which would prove the point that it's nobody's business whether you're married or not when you're having a child. Like, people need to stop being so gosh darn nosy. Anyways, all right, so that's the whole case. Caitlin is like, yeah, like, me and my boyfriend of however many years, also irrelevant. I'm only repeating it. Like, it doesn't matter if it was someone she met yesterday. Firing her for it is foolish at best. And judgmental in the middle, and at worst, discriminatory. So that's the whole lawsuit. So that's the complaint. Now, everything else is just stating like, hey, these are the claims, these are why we're using these claims. She's suing for discrimination, being like, hey, I'm not the only one that had premarital or extramarital sex, but I'm the only one that got fired. Like, you only fired me because I'm the one that you can see that, you know, the sex was happening. Like, well, the evidence is here. I'm sitting here at my desk with this belly. So, you know, you can't have that. You can't have people looking around at that, which is foolish. Let's look at the deposition. So this is the first time that we're gonna get to look at some depositions. A deposition is a witness's sworn out of court testimony. So what happens is in litigation, a witness will come in and they'll ask them a bunch of questions, interrogatories. The witness will then answer, and they will then have those documents. And then in court, they will then ask them the same questions, both the plaintiff side and the defense side, and they are gonna make sure that they map out and they match to what the witness previously said. So if they don't match, then it's like, oh, well, this is perjury because last time you said the sky was blue. Today you're saying the sky is red. What color is the damn sky? You get what I'm saying? That's how it's working. Let's go into Caitlin's deposition, which So question 4, identify by name every person for whom the following is true. 1, the person engaged in premarital sex while employed by defendant. 2, defendant became aware of it. And 3, defendant did not thereafter terminate their employment in whole or in part because of it. Answer. This request calls for speculation. Speculation means like, okay, I'm seeing into the mind of someone else. I'm guessing because, again, how should she know what the defendant, aka Ramsey Solutions, is thinking? Because defendant is notoriously secretive about the selective application of its policies. Woo, fighting words. Upon information and belief, plaintiff identifies the following. Chris Hogan. Defendant should have this information. So there's other people besides Chris, but I'm gonna block out their names for one specific reason, being that when I looked it up, their names are nowhere to be found on the internet, that people had outed them. And Chris has already admitted in court documents that he did this, admitted to his ex-wife that he did this, which is why they got divorced. She's not the only one, and he is not the only one allegedly at Ramsey Solutions, according to Caitlin. Woo! Next. So now in Ramsey Solutions deposition, they then stated, question, explain in detail your core values policy, in particular, what the righteous living policy encompasses from January 2018 to present. Answer, defendant does not have a core values policy. So that mission statement we're looking at, that's what we're talking about. Defendant provides biblically based common sense education and empowerment that give hope to everyone in every walk of life. This is true. Defendant has adopted 14 distinct core values that describe how the company stays aligned with and furthers its mission. So they're like, listen, it's not a policy, because policy is a very specific thing in legal language. So fine, say it's not a policy. Likewise, defendant does not have a righteous living policy. Righteous living is one of defendant's 14 core values. So like, they're basically, to the average person playing semantics, to a lawyer, they're like, it's not a policy really, you know, because the policy says if you do A, B will happen to you. Y'all have read your employee handbook. There's sexual harassment policies in there. There's certain things. Those are policies where people can take action against things that you do. Defendant explains righteous living as, we believe that character matters all the time, so defendant employees are expected to demonstrate strong character all the time. Again, this sounds fine. And here we go, the telling on themselves. Defendant considers and treats premarital sex as inconsistent with righteous living. They're like, hey, it's not a policy, but also we frown upon that. You shouldn't be doing it. Now, don't think it's anybody's employer's business to know what the hell you're doing outside of work, as long as you're not harming anyone and it's with another consenting adult. Why this is even a policy? It's just so, like, she was a good employee. She did her work. Like, what does it matter? What does it truly matter today? What did it ever matter? Like, this is a violation of so many things. Then in their deposition, they stated, identify all employees who have been accused of violating LAMPO's core values from January 1st, 2018 to plaintiff's termination. In doing so, state the employee's name, job, time, length of employment, etc. Answer, defendant objects to interrogatory, that's the question, because it seeks information that is neither relevant nor proportional to the needs of this case. That's not true. Other employees' pay rates have no bearing on this case. They did ask about pay. I don't know why they would ask that part. That's why I said blah, blah, blah. It was irrelevant. Also, defendant terminated plaintiff's employment for engaging in premarital sex. So discovery in this case should be limited to employees who have engaged in premarital sex. So like I said what I said, we fired her for bumping and grinding side of having a ring on her finger, because that ring just changes everything. I've seen enough divorced couples to know people act the same way they do single as they do divorced, but that's none of my business. It's none of my business. On to the point you're probably running around, can your employer really, prohibit you from having extramarital sex? The answer is likely no, and to be honest, Ramsey Solution attorneys know this. The court is not going to allow this to be set as a precedent. If they were to win on this, then it would be a precedent that your job can come in and just be busybody into your business and be like, well, I saw you was out there whining and grinding, so This is from the answer to the complaint, so this is Ramsey Solutions' answer. This is one of the paragraphs. Defendant is mindful that prohibition against premarital sex are not very common, especially among private for-profit employers, which Ramsey Solution is. They have Christian ethics, according to them, but they are not a non-profit institution or a religious institution. They are a for-profit employer, but they are not illegal. Employers are only prohibited from making employment decisions for impermissible discriminatory reasons. As a general rule, private employers may lawfully subject their employees to morality requirements. Yes, morality usually adds like you can't go on Facebook and be a racist. You can't go, outside in the street and murder somebody and then come into work the next day. Those type of morality, not you can't go and do what you want to do as a consenting adult. So that, I think she's definitely going to win on that. Insert some receipts. So Miss Amy Fritz, when all this started coming out, decided to post to her Twitter, not Instagram. This feels like a good day to share a little of our story. In 2019, 2 years ago, my husband resigned from his job at Ramsey Solutions, working for Dave Ramsey. He resigned because he knew they were covering for Chris Hogan. So people were like, hey, if you're gonna apply these rules, apply them to everyone. Y'all are over here caping for this man, I'm quitting. It didn't just end there, according to Amy. There's an article done by the Religious News. It sounds a little like sketchy, like, wait, what is this? It's actually a very good publication. I did some research into them before, I would send you an article. I'm gonna link it down below in the description box. They basically comment on how religion interplays with our secular/social life today in the 21st century. I thought it was very interesting. They did an article that came out, and one of the things that came out was that anytime some impropriety happened, Dave would allegedly hold meetings and basically chastise people in front of everyone. So this is the meeting that Amy's referring to. In the same reading, Ramsey referred to the men who had recently left as believing lies and said it was probably a good thing they left. The Ramsey organization discarded these good men to defend a man with zero character. Damn, she didn't have to come at Chris that hard, Lord. Ramsey Solution is not innocent, they are complicit. She went on to say, almost a year later, I shared part of our story on my website. A month later, their CTO went to my husband's new employer and maligned him and tried to intimidate us into silence. Who does this? Amy, that was my same question. Who does this? Remember again, this is to keep the information about Chris Hogan silent. So now, if you're thinking like, why do all of this to keep it silent? You have to understand the basis of Ramsey Solutions is, hey, we are a Christian-based organization. We follow all the principles of Christ, one of them being no premarital or extramarital sex. And the idea is like, oh, if we have one of our top sellers, one of our top personalities out here bumping and grinding with everybody but his wife, we can't sell that because that's not in line. So instead of firing him, allegedly, which they have now since fired him, they allowed him to continue, and they then allegedly, according to his wife, we're going to read from her next, allegedly concealed all of this from the good Christian public because that wouldn't sell. For context, for those of you that are super unfamiliar with Dave Ramsey and his teachings are often taught throughout many churches, particularly mega churches. They will book I forgot what it's called, like debt-free journey. It's a package that they sell. And again, it does work. It is very helpful. It is helping people get off paycheck to paycheck cycle. Unfortunately, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that is what we are gonna see. So in case you're thinking, oh, well, Dave didn't know. Well, the former Mrs. Hogan, Melissa Hogan, she has receipts showing that Dave did know, the board knew, and that they were all up in her business and intimidating her. So let's pull up her blog. So for example, after learning of specific painful issues in our marriage, she went and she told them. And for those of you thinking like, why would she go to his boss? That's super weird. To work at Ramsey Solutions, they also interview your spouse. Yeah, it's a full family job. It's real interesting. For example, after learning of specific painful issues in our marriage, Ramsey Solutions leadership and Dave Ramsey, she specifically said him, specifically prepared a restoration plan for our marriage, a process to which I initially agreed. After that process began, it was communicated that they intended for our marriage counselor, personal therapist, and our church elders to report to the leadership of Ramsey Solutions. For example, it was dictated that members of the board of Ramsey Solutions would have full access to updates from all counselors involved in real time. Child, somebody's gonna lose their license. That's a huge HIPAA violation, first and foremost. You cannot, as an employer, demand that your employees give you access to their licensed therapist notes. Also, y'all bullying this woman to say what this man is rude. Tweets from a one Miss Melissa Hogan. You know what? Sometimes you gotta shock people with imagery. I was not prepared for that, but okay. So the updated statement then said, as I noted in my initial statement on January 15, 2021, Ramsey Solution was well aware of my ex-husband's misconduct as far back as December 2018. This is important because this is literally gonna get referenced in this lawsuit. Or perhaps earlier, to the extent they claim that new information has compelled their decision to terminate my ex-husband, it is clear that they had sufficient information over 2 years ago that his conduct was inconsistent with Ramsey's core values and chose to do nothing until now. Instead, they chose to manipulate, cover up, and intimidate. Wow. Next paragraph. I also note that shortly prior to this decision on his employment, there were filings made public in a lawsuit against Ramsey Solutions related to the firing of a female employee for having premarital sex. Those filings made clear that the way Ramsey Solutions handled my ex-husband's immoral conduct would be a central issue. The very next day, his separation was announced to staff. A few more tweets from Miss Melissa Hogan. When an org has shown a willingness to lie, obscure the truth, or make victims or whistleblowers the enemy, whether public, privately, or in court, wisdom says that they are not worthy of trust in their assertions that they didn't know. We need to keep our discernment caps on. And that's what this is about. This is about accountability. This is about, well, you hid this, from what I gathered from what Melissa's saying, ruined her life, ruined the lives of others who were like, hey, no, we have to, keep that same energy, boo. Keep that same energy, and everyone needs to be accountable if you're gonna do this. And that was not done, and that's what this is about. This is not about the man, bumping and grinding out elsewhere. This is about fairness. Discrimination is always about, are you treating me the same way you're treating somebody else? Currently, Ramsey Solution has filed a motion to dismiss Caitlin's claims. I think they're gonna lose on that because they cannot say it is within Title VII, my right as a company to dictate this type of morality onto my employees. It's not. It's a right to make sure your employee's not an axe murderer because yeah, they might likely come into your office and cause harm, but what does them having premarital sex have to do with anybody else? Nothing. It has nothing to do with anyone else. This is going to be a case of how much control can your employer have over you. Again, it's your employer, your boss. That's it. The buck stops when I get my buck. You give me my money, okay, cool, and I give you these X set amount of hours in my day. It doesn't need to go into my home. So when you apply for a job, as I stated before, at Ramsey Solutions, your spouse also gets interviewed. You need to submit your budget because they need to make sure that you have no credit cards and that you know how to manage your money. Again, that's very odd, but I'm curious to know if that's a violation because do you know that companies can issue credit checks against you when you do a background check, when you apply for a job, and they can rescind your offer letter legally if you have bad credit? Which is wild. What if you just made some mistakes in the past and you're a great employee and you're trying to fix it? So, there are a lot of allegations that are not in this lawsuit specifically that we could talk about separately that would lead me to believe that this is not only a toxic but a harmful work environment, which is sad because again, the Dave Ramsey baby steps do work for a lot of people, and it's sad to see that it has gone to this level. This will be interesting to see how it plays out. This is gonna be an interesting case of how far and how much control can your employer exert over you. If you haven't already, please go ahead and like and subscribe, and thank you for tuning in. And we're definitely gonna have some updates here. This is not gonna go down quietly. Also, if you're tuned into this, on this Friday, March 19th, I think that's this Friday, we are gonna have a live. We are going to do Diet Prada versus Dolce & Gabbana, which is gonna be an interesting case about freedom of speech, forum shopping. So tune into that. We are gonna do Dolce & Gabbana is basically suing a what do you call them? A blog. They're a blog and like famous Instagram that calls out racist things in the fashion world, and they're suing them for reposting a racist thing that one of the founders of Dolce & Gabbana said. You know what? So tune in for that. Thank you as always.